season. Let's hear from the manager. Arne Slot is with Emma Saunders.
Well, Anna, that must hurt you, scratching your head a little bit at how you've come away from that empty-handed in the end.
Yeah, although we were 2-0 down, of course, at a certain point. But good comeback, although it didn't feel to me that we deserved to be 2-0 down at the moment we were. But players reacted really well. We came back to 2-2. And I think then in the end it was a very open game where both teams had their chances. They probably even more than us, which doesn't come as a complete surprise to me, knowing that we've played 2 days ago at Marseille. And for the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games, we mainly have to play with the same players for the players we have available. And then sometimes a few of them could be, in the end of the game, a bit tired. And I think that's what you could see today in the end as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask, was it credit to Bournemouth's perseverance in the end, or are you finding you're looking at yourselves a little bit? It also looked like you were a bit frustrated with the officials at the final whistle.
I think first of all we have to look at ourselves, and in the end of the game it was more open. Both teams were trying to score a goal. They had better opportunities than us in the last 10 minutes, and then in the end there's a long throw in which led for them to a goal. For me, 4 minutes of added time was by far not enough, but in the end that didn't matter because they scored, although maybe we could have had then 2 or 3 minutes, but this game should not have had 4 minutes of extra time. There was one free kick that already took 2 or 3 minutes. There were VAR moments, there were substitutions. So that was what I said to them in extra time, that 4 minutes wasn't enough. But yeah, they scored in extra time.
Whilst you did find a way back to 2-2, I suppose ultimately you gave yourselves a lot to do with those 2 Bournemouth goals inside 7 minutes of that first half. How did you see that period of the game?
As difficult, because I think the moment we conceded, there wasn't a thought in my head that that could happen, because I think we played a game where a lot of times our players were in very promising position, and it felt to me that it was waiting for the right moment and for the right execution and the right pass for us to score a goal, and then we conceded one, which had to do a little bit with the adjustment of a long ball, and the wind had impact on that ball. And then we went down to 10 men because of that goal, and we were down to 10 and they scored their second, and that was the only few minutes apart from the last 10 minutes I think where we had some problems with them, but the result is another loss.
So the trouble was you were a man down for that second goal, and it looked like you were doing everything you could to gesture to the players, kick the ball out, let's get him on the pitch. How do you see it now? Is it with regret? Perhaps you didn't get the player on sooner? Is it the player's responsibility to kick the ball out?
You can bring a player on sooner if the ball is not out of play. And the player was injured, Joe Gomez. The moment when he was injured, he said, I want to keep on trying, which is, I think, what most players try to do if they get a knock. But when we started playing, he said, no, it's not possible, I can't go back in. So yeah, then it is the best thing what can happen is go to 11 men as soon as possible. We had the chance because we were quite a long time in ball possession, but we kept it. And the moment we lost it, it took us a long time. We couldn't make a foul or to get the ball out of play. And then the ball went in when we were down to 10.
Just finally, there's been a lot of headlines linking Andy Robertson with a move away to Spurs. I suppose you brought him on at half-time. Says you need him.
I think I need all my players, but Robbo had to come in at half-time. In my opinion, I always knew that for Milos, another 90 minutes against a very intense Bournemouth side was not a possibility for him. So I always knew I had to bring him in, but I had already had one substitution in the first half. Then you don't have another. Then you only have 2 moments left. So I thought let's bring Robbo in at half-time to make sure that Milo stays available for the rest of the season, because there are a lot of games to be played with the players available. I have to manage that as well, because the last thing we could need right now is another injury.
Appreciate your time today, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jamie, what did you think of Arne Slot's comments?
I always think he calls the game sometimes almost too honestly. You know, we've spoken to Steven Gerrard, I thought was spot on, and he actually agreed with him. He said, talking about low blocks, and you're giving away almost, you know, too much information at times. Now, he said they couldn't have got the player. I don't agree with that. That's just doesn't make any sense to me. You've got to get him on at all costs. You know, you're 10 men, you're away from home. You've got to make the sub, whatever you do. And I felt it was a bit of player naivety, staff naivety. They just got it wrong, and it come at a huge cost to them. But they had enough chances to get themselves back in the game, especially when it gets to 2-2. I think there's only one winner. But they didn't capitalise, and that's where Bournemouth were then in the ascendancy. They shouldn't have been able to wrestle that ascendancy back, but they did. And I think it tells you a lot about where Liverpool are right now. They're incredibly fragile. They haven't got that tenacity, that ability, and last year we'd see them, and they're a shadow of the team from last year where they would somehow claw back victories and had that never say, die attitude. But it's been very difficult for them this season. It's been a real struggle, and I think this game pretty much encapsulated that as well.
Antonio Raiola said when they went in at half-time, because Virgil van Dijk had got the goal, it made things a little bit more difficult for Bournemouth because they were maybe protecting their lead rather than going all out for another goal. But that goal, you felt, gave Liverpool some of that momentum back.
Yeah, spot on. I think the dynamic of Iraiola's half-time team talk significantly changed after this Van Dijk goal. Just before half-time, I'm just going to highlight in there that little area where Van Dijk ends up scoring from that area, but it's a good ball in from Szoboszlai. But this is a moment of hope for Liverpool to grasp onto it, and I think it's actually really basic in terms of routine corner, good delivery from Szoboszlai.
Is it just taller players against shorter players? And that's another thing Antonio Raiola says.
I think when we look at it from another angle, the front post space, you can just see here Van Dijk and the connection. Evan Nielsen is the man in the front post space. For me, if I'm being really critical, I think Evan Nielsen needs to get in front of Van Dijk, and that's his job, but Van Dijk ends up meeting it first. It ends up going in off his back, if you like. It sort of loops over Petrovic. But I think that was a really big moment in the game, because I thought for Liverpool to go in at half-time at 2-1, they'll believe in themselves, they'll galvanise, but they just didn't come back out in the second half in that capacity.
And then it was another Dominic Szoboszlai free kick after scoring in Europe in midweek. Bournemouth made sure they did have the draft excluder for this one.
Yeah, they did. They needed it. But it didn't matter. He's so good at the moment. I think in terms of this season with Dominic, he's been so far Liverpool's best player. It's not even close. Player of the year at Liverpool is just a one-man show. He's been magnificent. Now, there's been a little bit of dialogue between Mo Salah and Szoboszlai, and I think this actually helps a little bit, because when you open up that angle, because Antonio Iriola was talking about this man here. That's Florian Wirtz, I think, isn't it? Yeah, Florian Wirtz, because you have to have a gap. We've seen a goal disallowed. I think it was Crystal Palace. Was it last year? It feels like it was last
Chelsea,
year.
Was it?
Started this season. Feels like a long time ago. Started this season. So, but what obviously, once this ball gets touched by Mohamed Salah, it becomes in play, so that becomes then irrelevant. So when you're that close, taking free kicks, I always feel if you can get it up and down, keepers, right-hand side, Petrovic has a lot to do, but it's not an easy one, especially with his technique where he's got that real dippy one. It's probably better to go keepers left. So once that ball then gets played back, I'll just let it run full pace to start. Mo Salah just opens up that angle for him, and his technique is so good. It's like no backlift and no follow through. Now, it's such a vicious strike into the keeper's left-hand side. You can see it here, little open up at the angle. Just take that back, because I think it's Smith that tries to...
Yeah, Smith charges it initially.
Comes in here. Now, when you're hitting that shot, I took free kicks. My feeling would be I wouldn't necessarily aim there. I would try to pick a player and almost think, can I just aim almost at those bottles there and just try to bring it back? So I would always feel if I could get it anywhere around him, the keeper's going to be unsighted until it gets to probably this point, and then can he move his feet quickly enough? And obviously he can't. And with Szoboszlai's technique, which is this vicious dip-in strike, it's very difficult for the goalkeeper. Look, you can see there, it gets low. But where he goes wrong, I would say, Petrovic, is I'm not a goalkeeper coach, by the way, so goalkeeper coaches probably tell me more, but I feel he's hopping to his right because he wants to protect this wall. So
But you're saying this from the point of view of somebody who's trying to read the goalkeeper if you're trying to score a free kick against him.
Yeah.
I think he steps to his right, Jamie.
Yeah, he
not
does.
Because of the wall, but because he knows that he needs to see the ball through that gap. Because Smith's gone and charged it. If you look at Petrovic where he stood, his angle where he's going to sight the ball, because the ball's been moved, that I think he's stepping so he gets a better look at where the ball's going to come from.
But I totally agree with that. But then one thing, once you step that way, what that then does is, I think, is puts all of your weight to your right side.
Absolutely.
So then to get back as quickly this way when someone hits the ball as fast as what Dominic does is almost impossible to get back. Because it's like, I just think we should run it slowly, because you can just see him here
Because he's close, isn't
all
he?
of his weight now. They can see how wide he's gone with his right foot. Now he's dipping that way. Can you then get your body back that way as quickly as you can to your left? You can't. It's too late. And then he sees it late because obviously he bends it round Smith. And it's an unbelievable finish. And at that moment, we both went, well, Liverpool going to win this game. Well, they're certainly going to get a point. And they obviously couldn't. Well, I thought they would.
No.
But the point we should make about Florian Wirtz was that what we believe Match Centre or the officials thought is that he was standing next to one player, and one player they think does not a wall make. You need to be next to all. You can see it, I think, better from the behind the goal angle than you can from behind. But
once he touches the ball, that then changes it, Kelly, no? I would have thought.
Yeah, but it's at the moment, the moment, because Mo Salah rolls it to him, but it's at the moment that Mo Salah touches the ball, he cannot be part of the wall. What they're saying is Florian Wirtz
there's a gap
is
there,
with
isn't
one
there?
player,
Yeah.
Right,
not with the whole of the wall.
And I also think Andoni,
one brick does not a wall
Andoni
make.
could not care less about that. He has forgotten about that like it never existed because they got the win.
Exactly. So they do go on to get the win. But at 2-1, Liverpool could have had a penalty. Ryan Ngumoa was definitely knocked off the ball. It's whether or not the force was enough for it to be awarded as a penalty. And also the question is, had he gone down, would it have been a penalty?
Well, this is Bournemouth in a low block towards the end of the game because they're defending deep. Jimenez is having to drop back in and defend. Ngumoa has done exactly the right thing. Go 1v1, he's got the space. There's no contact here because he gets inside the box, which is the key thing. It's that moment there. For me, if Ngumoa goes down, I think a penalty is given because you can see it here in slow motion. Excellent 1v1 play. Jimenez is trying his best, busting the gut to get back in. It's just that leg there, that left leg knocks him off balance. He does really well to stay on his feet. Really honest from him, Ngumoa. But I think that could have been a penalty if he went down.
But players, I know this is a sort of perennial debate when we kind of point the finger at players who dive, and strikers will always say if we don't go down very easily, we're not getting the decisions.
Well, if you're Ngumoa in that context and in that scenario in the game, you've gone on the pitch by your manager sent you on the pitch to go and win the game for your team. He's done exactly the right thing, which is be positive, get in the moment, be creative. And in the moment, Ngumoa's not thinking about going down. He's thinking about assisting. He wants to score or assist, and he's done exactly the right thing. But it's one way. I don't endorse it at all in terms of looking back at it and go, "Well, should I go down?" Absolutely not. But I genuinely think if he does go down because of the contact, I think it's a penalty.
Andy Robertson has been strongly linked with a move to Tottenham. Other reports, Jamie.
Yeah.
Do you have concerns, especially if he does make that move, about Liverpool's depth in defence?
Well, from the reports that we're hearing, is that Tsimikas would then come back just to give some strength in depth on that left back position with Milos Kerkez, so that would make sense.
But particularly when you look at the players who are unavailable, we should also factor in the players who left over the summer. Tsimikas went off on loan. Trent Alexander-Arnold obviously left.
Yeah.
Jarell Quansah left the club. There have been wholesale changes in the Liverpool defence.
Yeah, and obviously Connor's picked up a really nasty injury, so we're probably not going to see him again this season.
Same with Giovanni Leone, who only played a couple of games.
And he looks a real prospect. He looks a real talent. He picked up that injury in the Carabao Cup, and obviously, hopefully, Ibrahim Konate will be back soon. But it does feel like they are down to the bare bones, if you like. They need some players. He needs a little bit of help in that department, because if they were to pick up an injury or two more, they're going to have real problems. I don't know the ins and outs, so I can't talk, but Gay felt like a big miss. That was always something that everybody, football would say that he's going to be going to Liverpool. It looks like a done deal. Manchester City obviously came in and offered him a huge amount of money to go there, and it's a really good move from him. Fully understand that one, but it just felt like that would be one that Liverpool would have certainly partaked in. They didn't, so now they have to be clever in the market. The hard thing is you go and buy a player, and Leone is going to be a real star, and then he's probably going to be fit for the start of next pre-season, hopefully. So you're in a bit of a position, really, but you've got to make sure you've got some strength in depth.
Jamie, people will not have sympathy for Liverpool's squad being thin, given how much money they spent over the summer. Do you think this is a point that Arne Slot made in pre-season, and he made it ahead of the game against Bournemouth at Anfield on the opening day of the season, that not enough people were talking about the players who weren't available, who had either left the club. Obviously, we know about the Jota situation as well. Nunez had gone. Luis Diaz left as well. Do you think there's an argument that their squad is thinner this season as defending champions than it was last season as Premier League champions?
Yeah, and like today, Ekitike's been brilliant, you know, and you'd love to have started him today, but you obviously have to be careful. And the ideal situation would be that Alexander Isak would have played, but he's obviously picked up a really bad injury. So they haven't been lucky with injuries, but I think if you're talking now about Liverpool having bad luck with injuries, I think a lot of other clubs will go, it's the same for everyone. That happens.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do with that. And I feel that Liverpool have to make sure that they just, if anything, and it's not easy finding good centre-backs, good young centre-backs. Chelsea are probably trying to do the same thing right now. Other clubs, you know, Arsenal have obviously they've invested really well in the summer. They've got strength in terms of right-backs that can play centre-backs. And that's an area where Liverpool are going to have to strengthen. But the injuries have certainly cost them, but it costs every team, Kelly. It's not enough of an excuse. And it's certainly when you get back to two today.
I was asking more about transfers, about players leaving the club rather than the players who aren't available through
and
injury.
horrendous situations as well, Kelly, you know, and obviously Trent left, but you knew that Trent was going to leave in, so you brought in Frimpong, and obviously then Conor Bradley's finding form, then he picks up that bad injury. It has been difficult in that respect, but Kelly, all teams pick up injuries.